Do you have any nicknames for your sword? You just call it a sword? I mean, there's gotta be a cool name for it, like how Amiya calls her sword right hand because she holds it with her right hand. Ying Xiao, right hand, same thing honestly. You call it a sword because it's a sword? Damn, that's actually pretty deep if you think about it. Qiu Bai, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, is the fastest NPC to get out of jail. She's like if Frostleaf got the glow up she deserved, which is honestly kinda sad for Frostleaf. Qiu Bai's first talent lets her deal additional arts damage if the enemy is slowed or bound. When I say slowed, it's not that scrunkly little movement speed reduction, it's slowed as in sluggish, as in Angelina Gaming type slow. This talent wouldn't be that good if she didn't have the means to proc this talent by herself, but she does. Her second talent gives her attacks a chance to bind the enemy for 1.5 seconds. Both these talents obviously have some synergy together, though you can't rely on her basic attacks alone to carry much weight. If you're wondering if the first talent gets applied after she gets the bind off, the answer is yes. The spaghetti coating is thankfully not that harsh in this one. The chance to bind on that second talent is not significant enough for you to rely on her crowd control skills, so we have to look at her skills in order to see what she's really cooking. Her third skill gives her the Frostleaf E2 range, but without any of the downsides. It increases her attack by a mediocre amount, lets her attack 3 targets, and makes her attacks deal arts damage. Qiu Bai's ranged attacks will no longer have that 80% ranged attack penalty that Lord Guards have, and for every attack she does, Qiu Bai will gain 13 attack speed, stacking up to 8 times. The skill doubles the damage from her first talent too. The attack speed stacks go pretty crazy, shaving her attack interval down to only a 0.633 attack interval at max stacks. This allows her to get way more procs of that second talent, but don't expect her to be permabinding anyone because that 20% proc chance is still the same. It's good enough to give her more opportunities to hit that first talent, and especially with the double damage, base attack additive, and attack speed stacks, she'll essentially turn enemies into Swiss cheese. The skill lasts for 30 seconds too, which makes it great for hordes of tough goons. Despite the skill having pretty high DPS and total damage, Qiu Bai doesn't have any forms of arts res reduction, so enemies with medium res can stop her damage pretty quickly, but in general her kit is pretty synergistic with itself, making her a fun operator to play around with. Hey Yato, I know that you've been doing a lot of work lately, and here at Rose Island, we respect hard work, which is why I'm giving you a promotion. No, you don't need to change clothes. No, it doesn't even make you stronger. Why are you so adamant on wearing less clothing? In a Chulter-style fashion, Yato has finally realized the true meaning of friendship by discarding half of her clothing, and who knew, behind that mask of hers was a hot anime girl. But ooh, she's a limited that's never gonna rerun, ooh, you better pull, otherwise you're gonna be missing out on so much and you'll get permanent account damage and you will never be able to enjoy Arknights ever again, and all the kids at the playground are gonna laugh at you and give you a knuckle sandwich. Yato Alto's first talent gives her conditionalless arts damage. As you can see, we're already off to a great start. Her second talent gives her more attack during her skill activations and 10 seconds after her skill goes away. Yeah, she does damage. Alright, on to her skills. Yato's second skill forces her to play Honkai Star Rail, giving her a seizure upon deployment, dealing a billion hits in the span of a second, each doing a billion damage. Instead of doing 20% of her attack as arts damage per hit, now it's 50% because she really needed more damage. The skill also for some reason gives her taunt. The reason why this skill is stupidly good for killing things is not specifically the damage. I mean, she does a lot of it, and I know AK players love focusing on damage, but there's other reasons why the spasm of a skill is good. First of all, it's basically instant, so Yato can be redeployed elsewhere on the map very easily because you could just retreat her as soon as the skill ends. For some ungodly reason though, HG decided to also give Yato true AoE in that single tile of range, so she can do her billion damage to everything. Yato's third skill makes her do a sweep in a direction you deploy her, dealing true AoE damage every 0.2 tiles. She'll only go forward 2 tiles initially, but for every hit she does, she'll extend the range of her dash by 0.3 tiles to a maximum range of 5 tiles. She has iframes during this skill. You've probably seen funny buff armies of her cleaning the Undertides boss or IS-2 bear boss in one sweep, and while that does showcase the multi-hit and potential total damage of the skill, you're never actually gonna pull that off in a reasonable situation on a single enemy. However, Yato does just fine on single enemies anyways, because what the hell is this damage right here? For some reason, her art's talent is also affected by that 3 times multiplicative attack modifier. Despite Yato's actual hit range being super short with the skill, only 0.51 tiles, it's way better for crowd control compared to her second, since she has that extended sweep. There are some people who say closeless Yato power crept Texas, and I think those people need to shut up. As much as I'd like to leave it here and move on, that attitude isn't very nice to players who are genuinely confused why. Comparing skill 2s on both the executors, Yato does way less total damage than Texas does. Texalter has her skill refresh talent on top of the res reduction when you drop her, so she'll end up doing more total damage than Yato. The skill 3s of both ops are entirely different from one another, so that one is whatever. They're more like side grades to each other. Yeah, we gotta stock up on canned beans and water. There's a zombie apocalypse going on right now. Ines is supposed to be dead, but she's literally right here in front of our eyes. Also grab my Originium-powered shotgun for me. Oh yeah? How do I know you're not a zombie that's pretending to be an alive person? What's something the real Ines would say? Yeah, never mind. I hate W2. That's totally you, Ines. The 6th star of the Agent Vanguard branch has finally arrived, and even though she is one of the strongest vanguards, her kit was not what I was expecting. Ines' first talent lets her first attack on every enemy bind them for 5 seconds and steal 90 attack from them. Stealing is basically a new mechanic where the enemy is debuffed the same time the operator or ally is buffed, so in this case the enemy has 90 less base attack while Ines will have 90 more attack. If you're wondering where stealing fits in the damage per hit formula for the operator, it's at the end, after multiplicatives. The bind is pretty long, and since it's a bind rather than something like stun, it can be used on practically every enemy. Ines' second talent removes stealth of the enemies inside her range and reduces their movement speed. After retreating her, she'll leave behind a sword that has the same range as her and does the same thing. This talent doesn't seem like a lot at first, but Ines can slow and reveal enemies without taking up a deployment slot, which is extremely huge in high-risk contingency contract. Oh, right. In whatever high point pinch out abomination comes next. Ines' second talent expands her range into new territory. I wish I was joking when I say that, because Ines is the only vanguard that actually has diagonals and a 3rd tile ahead of her. It increases her attack, and every hit she does on an enemy will generate 1 DP and steal 7 attack speed from them, stacking up to 10 times. Ines also gets stealth during this skill. Now there's the Virgin Cantabile camo and then the Chad Ines stealth. Stealth is awesome because it's basically invulnerability unless the op is blocking the enemy. The fact that Ines essentially disappears from the enemy's radar turns her into a ranged pseudo-assassin, and that attack speed debuff on the enemy can be extremely strong if you know how to abuse it. The biggest problem with the skill is that it's a little too short with only 12 seconds of uptime, so you can't really make use of the max stacked debuff for most of the time. Even if it only lasts 12 seconds, Ines does 18 hits throughout the entire duration, making it a decent choice for a DP gen. Ines' third skill makes her first deployment deploy the Shadow Sword of her second talent at 0 DP. She'll immediately retreat, and then you can actually start using her. For her subsequent deployments, the sword will travel across the map linearly towards her, dealing physical damage to the first 6 enemies it hits. Her attack is massively increased, and she generates 1 DP for every hit she does on an enemy, including the sword. With this skill, Ines gains extremely good map-wide presence, the only issue being you'd need to actually have a brain to maximize its usage. While her S2 just lets her be deployed and be done with it, making full use of her subsequent deployments with S3 takes a lot of effort. It's a potentially powerful skill since the sword does do a decent chunk of damage and procs Ines' first talent that binds enemies on her first hit of them, letting her affect parts of the map she isn't even deployed near. If you're trying to use her as a vanguard though, this skill isn't it due to her high attack and no attack speed buffs. Anyways, that's about it. Goodbye.